What's your story? What's your sign? It's like we're twin flames in a different life. Deep connection lights a spark. It's like you know me in the depths of my heart. We're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We live.
Hey guys, do you know someone that's going to their healthcare provider and just not getting better? A treasured loved one, or maybe they're even getting worse? And you're like, whoa, what can I do? Well, stay tuned. You're in the right place at the right time. I am your host, Shayna Melissa Stockman, the world wellness expert. I will help you get better and feel better when other remedies don't. And I have a very special guest here, the amazing Marisa Pizza. I want to do just this. Yes, Marissa is a marketing and a nonprofit professional. Not only does she have a real full-time job with Halo branded marketing, but she also sits on the board of 12, I don't even have that many fingers, 12 nonprofits as a volunteer. She's a driven, collaborative leader, enjoys working with others across all different industries to help one another shine. She has a passion for creativity and marketing, as well as the nonprofit work, as she sits on 12 nonprofit boards as a volunteer. She enjoys spending time with her boyfriend, family, friends, and the animals. She is, oh my God, I'm gonna have to shorten this. She's an executive director of the Farmingville Residents Association, vice president membership for Farmingville Hills Chamber, was also the first VP of Farmingville Hills Chamber, senior account manager for Halo Branded Solutions, events manager for Long Island Faline Adoption Center, haha. And some of the boards she sits on, I'll just read a few. Sachem Education, Power Women, Patchogue Medford High School, Brookhaven Women in Youth, Decisions in Women, Farmingville Historic Society, the Farmingville Chamber, Move to Amend, Women's Advisory Board for the town of Brookhaven, and it goes on and on and on. And the Brookhaven Chambers of Commerce as well. And I probably left off a few. And she also does radio broadcasting as a personality, correct?
I do.
All right, so glad you're
years.
here today. We're doing things a little differently.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. How's it going?
It's going all right. And I want to say congratulations to you.
Ooh, high five.
You had a big week with one of the boards that I sit on for the Women's Advisory Board, does a women's recognition, and you were one of the award recipients this year.
Thank you. And that was a very good honor because Marissa does not make the decision. It's a totally different board, so I didn't even have any privileges on that. So it was an honor to be nominated for the Healthcare Professional 2024 of Women's Recognition in the town of Brookhaven. And 6 other certificates from the assemblymen. Thank you, the assemblymen, legislators, the town soup that was there. And Marissa does so much good for the community, but when you volunteer on the boards, you're not allowed to get one of the awards. Otherwise, you would have them all.
Well, I'm glad you received it because it was well deserved and awesome ceremony. And
yes, it was beautiful. Big kudos to the Women's Advisory Board of the town of Brookhaven for all you do to recognize the women within our community. And I just got back from Nashville. See my guitar earpicks.
I love
yes, and then we had the award ceremony, and then yesterday we did book signing at the local. Shout out to Sachem Library, beautiful library.
Yes, it is.
All right, now we're going to get going on today. Originally, we were going to talk about high achieving women and how to make time in our busy lifestyles for our own wellness. But at the last minute, we decided to put a spin on it due to personal reasons that are near and dear to our heart. And we wanted to talk about how we can advocate for our treasured loved ones. You guys at home might know of someone that is constantly going to the healthcare provider and they're still getting worse, or they're not better and they're not feeling well. And we want to show you what you can do to advocate them, because sometimes the older population is so respectful that they just think the doctor or their healthcare provider knows best and they just listen without advocating for themselves. And I want to show you how you can advocate for yourself, or it could be your parent, your grandparent, your spouse, or your child, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Very true.
You want to set up the snare a little bit about how we change the health?
Absolutely. So as Shayna had mentioned, originally we were talking about high achieving women. We actually met, a little backstory, through a women's networking organization called Decision Women in Commerce and Professions. So very grateful to that organization. Because of them, we met each other. So that's what we were starting about, women who support each other. And then something personally occurred in my life. Shayna is also a nurse practitioner for my father, who is also a member of some of these organizations, our civic, our chamber, our historical society, you name it. My father's almost 86. He's unusually active for his age. And we had one of two little snowstorms here in New York last month. And my father slipped on black ice. And he wound up fracturing his sacral spine. And went through situations, couldn't really get answers. And Shayna actually, from day one, I like to give credit where it's due. And this has been a big part of my life and my dad's life and our story right now. Sometimes I firsthand saw he was kind of brushed off because he was older and he's kind and polite. And my father's not a complainer, and seeing him in pain, I have a large mouth and I have no problem advocating. And healthcare professional is not my background, but she was phenomenally helpful in saying, here are the things you need to look into. I think it's this. And everything she said from day one is what it turned out to be. And if it weren't for that, we may still be on the journey with him not able to walk and not getting answers. And now he's on the road to recovery due to your help.
Thank you. So we want you guys to be aware that if you are not getting better or feeling better, or your treasured loved one, if it's a parent you're taking care of, a grandparent, a spouse, or a child, you have to speak up for yourself or for them. And I feel like with the older population, a lot of doctors or healthcare providers, not just doctors in general, tend to dismiss it. Oh, you're just getting old. Oh, you're going to heal slow. And I think exactly that's what was happening. And can I share a little bit?
Sure.
She's the healthcare proxy, so I can share. And
yes,
plus we asked friends. So in this situation, the doctor ordered an X-ray of one body part, but the problem was the X-ray was not including the tailbone, which usually when the elderly fall, they fell on their tailbone. And that's the part we needed X-rayed. And I think there was a lot of miscommunications. I think the ordering healthcare provider did not order necessarily the right body part. He was dismissing the pain, he or she, and that, if your pain continues, you have to open your mouth or have someone advocate for you to say, hey, listen, doc, can we repeat the X-ray? Can I see the results? Can we have it reread? Can I get an MRI? And in this case, I was like, listen, we need that X-ray to include the tailbone, which it had not, and we need a repeat X-ray. Sometimes the initial X-rays don't show up, on the fractures don't show up. And if the X-ray doesn't show it, then move on to the MRI. And I think he was so misled, like, give it a couple weeks, give it a couple more weeks, go to the orthopedist, go to the neurosurgeon. And then finally it went to, oh yeah, why don't we repeat the X-ray and include the tailbone and to the MRI. So I'm glad he's on his road to recovery. And we also wanted to advocate on several different points. I wrote down a couple so I didn't forget. What other tips would you have for someone in this situation? Like maybe they don't, well, now they have me, right? Maybe they don't have someone like me to advocate for themselves.
Well, one thing kind of going back to, I know we know each other separately, but for example, you're also a very active member of our Chamber of Commerce. If somebody is looking for somebody local in different industries, you can go to your local Chamber of Commerce website, search your resources, and somebody like Shayna will show up under healthcare. And find somebody local who is in your area who you can meet with quickly and get some answers from. Because sometimes, not that the larger practices are not part of your Chamber of Commerce, but sometimes somebody local really has the time to listen. And I will tell you,
What'd you say?
The time to listen. And it is true. I learned, for example, I did not know what S2 to S5 of the sacral spine was. Never heard of it in my life. You told me that from day one, and then once I mentioned that to the provider we had gone to, sure enough, that's where the fracture was.
Yes, I looked at his initial X-rays that I did not order, and it was just including the lumbar spine, the lower back, but not the tailbone. And I'm like, no, they didn't even look at the tailbone on this X-ray. So that's a very good point. So make sure it's the right body part, and have the images reread, repeat them, or ask possibly for an MRI if you don't have metal implanted in that area. And be sure, if you guys are watching on YouTube, to click that subscribe button now. Let us know where you're tuning in from, #live or replay, and where you're watching from. We'd love to hear. We love when you interact. We can try to stream it across, your comments, your questions. And that's how we know that you're watching, is your comments, your interactions, your hearts and your likes. And I wanted to share, if you don't mind, a few tips for those advocating for their loved ones. It's important, if you're advocating for your parent or your grandparent and they have a chronic condition, don't schedule the appointment for a Monday morning. Please, I'm going to give you some tips, right? A lot of the doctors, they're closed on the weekend, so they are mobbed on Monday with things that happened over the weekend and patients out of medications. So if it's a chronic condition, don't schedule it for Monday morning. Or also evenings. Evenings, the people are off of work, their kids are out of school, evenings are busier. So if you're taking your parent who is retired now to the doctor's office, it might pay for you to go during the day. You might get a little more time from the doctor. And can I share a few more tips?
Yes, go right ahead.
Can you tell them about the communication book I told you about? This is a really good one. I told her, especially with elders who might not speak up and might not remember everything that occurred with the different providers in the healthcare facilities, to start what I call a communication book.
And that actually worked out very well because she had mentioned that. And one thing that she had mentioned, for example, was getting my dad in the facility that he's now in recovering at an air mattress to help with his recovery.
Yes, because we noticed one of the first things that happens to people that when they go into subacute or long-term healthcare facilities is bed sores, especially if they're skinny and especially if they're immobile and they can't turn and reposition every couple hours. So I knew one of his biggest concerns too was, one, bed sore, and two, possibly get pneumonia or an infection from being in the facility. So yes, so I advocated for an air mattress.
And setting up that book so that that note was in there, for example, so that way, if my father did not remember with everything going on and everything else, I actually was the squeaky wheel and made sure that I followed up with the nurse care team there and said, hey, check the book, everything's in there. And they did. And the next day we came in and he had a brand new air mattress.
Yes,
so,
thank you. Yes, because maybe you guys aren't a prescriber and can't write the orders. But what we did was, I didn't want to step on their doctor's toes. So we went to the nurse and we said, hey, listen, when you see the doctor tomorrow, can you recommend he gets him an air mattress, an egg crate, a duoderm, a double layer skin on that area that's reddened, and these other things. Sheepskin, little booties so he doesn't get heel bed sores.
Right.
And so that worked out good. He had an air mattress the next day. So reach out to the nurses, befriend them. They want to help you. I love my fellow nurses. This is my 30th year. 30th year as an RN. Actually, I got this 30 years ago and I still have my little RN. So kudos to all your nurses out there, nurse practitioners. And this communication book, I think, worked out well. So it's important because when you're in these facilities, your treasured loved ones, you're not allowed access to their chart, right? So what we did was we kept what we called a communication book, and we wrote across the outside of it in big letters, communication book for everyone that visits so-and-so. And we wrote a little letter on the inside, please, every time you give care to so-and-so, please document in here so the family knows any changes, any updates, and what was done and wasn't done. Especially if your treasured loved ones might have memory lapse. They might not know if physical therapy came or not. So you know what? We made all the healthcare providers of her dad known that, listen, if you don't write this book, we're assuming you didn't come today and you didn't do care to him. Right? So,
and the other thing is too, having somebody in your corner who is a healthcare provider. For example, a lot of times in these facilities, you have a care team meeting, and it's lay people, it's family members, it's healthcare proxies, and the average person doesn't know what questions to ask, does not know what's going on. So having somebody like you, a part of our care team, has been very helpful. Because that way, instead of me asking, they throw information at you, you really don't know what a lot of it means. But if something comes our way that you can stop and say, you know what? No, that's not what should happen. What about this to resolve that? And the average person doesn't know to ask that. So if there's somebody either, if you can get a healthcare provider you trust to be a part of those meetings, that's huge. Yes. It really is.
Yes, thank you. Because yes, you're right. The average person that's not in healthcare, they don't know that, hey, one of the number one things that he was prone to would be a bed sore happening next. So what we did was we took a proactive approach. We got him the doctor's order for the air mattress. We asked for, those foamy egg crates. We asked him that he could try to move, turn position every couple of hours, get out of bed if he's allowed. Because that and pneumonia is another thing that they commonly catch in long-term care facilities and other infectious contagious diseases. So what we wanted to do with him was, if they're coming from the hospital, they have one of those little things they blow into called an incentive spirometer to encourage them to take deep breaths. But another thing you could do is if you don't have one of those, go to the dollar store and just get bubbles and have them blow bubbles. That'll really get their lungs aerating. So those were good things. And then Also, other points is when you go to the doctor, I recommend if you have an elderly parent, go with them to the doctor. Please don't schedule for a Monday or a nighttime. Schedule for a midday, even if you have to take a lunch break or extended lunch break or half a day. Go with them. Write a list of questions you have for the doctor, and honestly, when you go with them to their healthcare provider, that provider is probably going to give them a little extra time. You know what? When you don't go with them and their memory's not so good and they're falling behind, they might just be rushed out the door, And I'm not saying all healthcare providers are this, but a lot of us are stretched super thin where we have less and less staff, less and less pay, and we're trying to rectify, move as quick as we can. So also, ask for if you book the appointment for them. So go during the day, during the week, and ask the whoever's booking it for an extra time slot. Say, listen, my dad has a lot of health concerns, a lot of chronic problems that need to be addressed. Can we give him an extra time slot? Or maybe even book for the annual physical where they usually give you a little extra time for that slot. And what other helpful tips do you have if you're taking care of a treasured loved one?
I think it's also important to use your business skills, because when you're advocating from somebody, it's a business transaction. So the same skills you would do if you're addressing a situation, as a manager, in leadership, problem solving, putting out fires in whatever career industry you're in, use that same kind of mindset. So for example, when my father first got to, he had the MRI done at another location, then he was at a hospital. And it was like reinventing the wheel, trying to get a copy of the disc that was done the day before of the MRI. They didn't want to redo it at the hospital because it would take even longer. And I had to hunt people down like I would hunt client, or vendors down in my regular job. I used those same skills as if I was doing it for my job, and it got it done. And I said to them, I'm like, I'm sorry if I was annoying. I'm big on being persistent. I'm type A. I'm big on follow-up. But it's what we needed to get my dad answers, because if we kind of just waited, it was low down the priority list. He wasn't dying. He wasn't somebody who came in who was bleeding all over the place. So he went into the file. So you have to, be loud, but also, use your business skills that you know what's going on, take control, and be assertive in a professional way. That definitely is beneficial.
Yes, definitely. If the nice route doesn't work, assertive definitely helps.
And it's worked.
Yes, and it's important when you go for a test, right there, when you get that MRI, that X-ray, say, you know what, can you put it on a CD for me? Can you make a copy before I leave? Because once you leave, it's so hard to get in touch with medical records, get the release form, sign the release form, send it back, give them your license, whatever else they want. So while you're at that test, because not every doctor can read results from every facility. Different facilities, can read different results. So it's important while you get the test, ask for the copy while you're there. And then also kudos to you for being the healthcare proxy, because, it's very important that if you have parents and there's multiple siblings, it's important that your parents pick one person that they appoint to be the healthcare proxy. Otherwise, siblings might fight over what mom or dad would have wanted. No, he would have wanted to be intubated and kept alive.
Absolutely.
No, he wouldn't have. So it's important before they get to that point that they should pick one person to be the healthcare proxy. And that should be the person that knows their wishes and willing to carry out their wishes, not willing to carry out what they believe, but willing to carry out what the patient believes.
It's about that. And that's the thing too. I think sometimes when loved one, parents, whoever maybe gets older, the roles kind of revert, right? You become like the parent, they become like the child sometimes. That's kind of what happens. I'm living it in real time.
It's true. They lose their hair, they drool, they become incontinent.
I mean, things go backward and the roles reverse, which is hard to see because you that was who raised you, and now you're kind of helping them, but you also want to give them the care that hopefully they gave you. You gotta, if you're grateful for that, you want to return that favor. So it's also important to, you hear these horror stories of people in facilities not getting the right care, and you want to make sure that, you advocate for them, but you also know what their wishes are and that they're carried out, and respect what works for them. It's not about you.
Yes.
Whatever happens to you in the future, well, that's for you. But right now, you're working on their behalf, and you want to look back at it. And I mean, one thing I can't say enough is, I'm very fortunate, and I'm aware that I have wonderful parents, and my father is very grateful, and he doesn't need to be because he's done so much for us. But I'm so glad that he is happy with how this has been handled for him, because you want to know that you did everything you could to take care of them. And you learn a lot too. I've learned a lot about the medical field in real time because, I'm used to working in marketing. and nonprofit work. And so being in hospitals and facilities more than I ever have in my life, honestly, I'm seeing people in real time. And it's a hard job you guys do. I give you a lot of credit because you really are. I mean, the care that my father got is why he is getting better. He has gotten excellent care. So thank you for what you all do.
Yeah, thank you to all the fellow nurses out there. And I want to say the facility he's at is supposed to be a 5-star facility. But in all honesty, when I pulled up there, I didn't see that many cars in the lot. That means there's not that many employees there. And then also in the hallway, we noticed several buzzers going off simultaneously, and they are short staffed, and they were filled to the max. Every room was full to capacity. And you have to advocate because, you know, when they have 10 buzzers going off, they're you know, the person that might not have the memory or might not have someone to speak up for them, they're gonna sit longer, and that person often might be the one that really needed them the most, that they think, oh, it's just him being lonely again, and they could really need that person the most. So
and the other thing is too that I learned, I mean, after my father got out of the hospital, my sister and I sent a thank you basket, to the nurse station on the floor he was on the hospital because they were so good to him. He was released on a Tuesday, and 3 days later, his doctor from the hospital called my cell phone 3 days after he was her patient just to say how he was doing because she appreciated how we advocated for him, but we also respected the work they were doing. Yes. So finding that balance. You don't want to be too aggressive that you're offending everybody. Yes. You walk in there like, here we go. Yes. But you want to make sure that you advocate and you're, you know, assertive enough. So finding that balance and then thanking people, it goes a long way.
Yes, you know what? It's not that hard when you come to the unit to just bring a cup of coffee for one of the nurses.
Exactly.
Or a few munchkins
Go
or something.
on Amazon, send a basket. I mean, it's very easy to do these days, and in any business, right? But it means a lot, especially when somebody is taking care of your family member who means so much to you. It's nice that they know that it was appreciated and that their hard work is not in vain.
Yes, you know, even like when I have landscapers come, whoever it may be, I treat them nice, they treat me nice, you know, and it needs to be reciprocated. And I want to commend you for being on the board, volunteering for 12 boards, and still having the time to take care of your dad and advocate for him. Well, that's amazing.
And a thank you to my colleagues who I work with, both at my full-time job and my boards, because there was a lot of rearranging because this happens in real time and life goes on, right? But you have to also make that your priority. So everybody really, I can say, you know, that I've worked with has been really good about helping pick up the slack that I couldn't do for a period of time.
Would that be branded Halo Solutions?
It's, you know, honestly, my manager here, corporate's based in Illinois where I work, but I manage the Long Island office. And I can't say enough about my managers. Fantastic. I mean,
that's awesome.
Everything got done because, you know, like a lot of businesses, you know, is anybody going to die if it doesn't get done? No, but time is money. And if things don't get done, I'm in a sales driven industry, right? Marketing. So it was nice that things got done, but they also realized, you know, the care aspect. So it's hard. I talked to somebody else today who I work with who's going through a similar thing, much more serious, long term. And it's hard because we live in a society, especially in the United States, that work, right? So, but then life happens. So you have to find the balance between working and getting things done, but not forgetting the humanity aspect of life.
Yes. And kudos to her bosses, because I remember when my mom was crashing, mine weren't so nice to me. You know who you are.
I've heard those stories. Some people don't care.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how many years have I been here and never like taken off, you know, and unexpectedly. So that's really important. And what else do I want to say? When you go to the doctor's appointment, if you go with your loved one, please go with them. Go during the day, ask for extra time, bring your questions, a piece of pen and paper, arrive early, expect to stay long, expect they're going to have emergencies and be backed up.
Do your homework.
Get copies of the results. Do your homework.
Before you go in there, have a plan. Don't say, oh, I'm going to this kind of doctor. Well, I'll figure it out when I get there. Know why you're going, what the end goal is, and do your homework with what questions you want to ask. And like I said, bring your own version of your communication book. Check it off as you go to make sure you touch upon every point you need to.
Yes, and leave there with results in case you want a second or a third opinion. Definitely. They can hand them to you. It's better to get them while you're there than try to get through to medical records. And get a second opinion, a third opinion. I can tell you, with my own health, I had to advocate for myself. When I was in heart failure, I was going to a heart specialist, not the one I currently have, but I was like, Doc, with all due respect, these meds, now I'm in heart failure. I'm getting worse and worse. I'm listening to the doctor. I'm doing the medications, all right? And the higher dose, and add the third one, the second one, the fourth one. And I was like, Doc, with all due respect, are any of these meds gonna stop the progression of me getting worse? No. Are they gonna help me get better? No. Are they gonna help me feel better? No. Are they gonna reverse progression? No. And I'm like, well, we need to get to the root cause, or we're never gonna stop it from getting worse, and we're not gonna be able to reverse it. And that doctor told me, listen, 95% of these heart patients here, I never know the cause of their heart failure. And I was like, I'm sorry, you have one body part. And if you can't find the cause of 95 out of every 100 heart failure patients that come to you, then you can't stop it from getting worse, and you sure as hell can't reverse it. So you know what? I fired my healthcare provider. I'm not saying fire yours right away. Get a second opinion, a third opinion. See who you like best. Do your homework. See their reviews. How long they've been experienced. If they have expertise in your diagnosis or your symptoms, because not every neurologist knows about, I don't know, RSD or certain types of things. So it's a lot of them subspecialize now. Orthopedist, you just can't go to an orthopedist now. You have to go to an orthopedist that does hips.
This is a spine specialist my father's now going to.
I remember telling you that.
And you interview them like they interview you, even if it's not
Yes.
your field. Yes, I'm not in healthcare; it's not my expertise. But if I in business, you're in business long enough, you know what questions you want to ask. So, not to be come down as aggressive, but the same way that they would interview you almost as a patient, you do the same thing. Do your due diligence and make sure it's the right fit for your family member. The same, and treat people the way you want to be treated. If your loved one, who's your life, hopefully you want your life to be taken care of and well guarded, treat them the same way you'd want to be taken care of yourself, to make sure they get the really best outcome possible to get through whatever they're going through.
Yes. Oh, can we talk about hope real quick?
We can.
Now, remember you were saying about your dad walking again, and what did I say about hope and belief?
Absolutely.
Go.
Well, I can't. I'm going to paraphrase. So, so the big question I have with this situation, my father was always very ambulatory, and now this happened, and at the moment he's not able to walk. So I had said to her, I'm like, my first question was, do you think he'll walk again? And do you want to say how you actually said it? Because I'm going to paraphrase.
Well,
I
have a no filter sometimes, but okay, I'll say pretty much. Okay, we have to first have belief, or we're never going to take the action. When my grandma, at 79 years old, the doctors gave up hope on her ever walking again, and now she was looking. I used to look up to her my whole life. Now she's looking up to me, and she's like, "Do you ever think I'll walk again?" And I thought for a minute, and I think outside the box. I'm like, sure you will. I thought about the root cause of her problem, and I knew the root cause of her problem, and I knew that we could stop the progression and reverse it, and I can get her walking again. And because I gave her the belief, then she took the action steps. We did stretching and strengthening every day, and she eventually walked again with no cane, no walker, no nothing. Now, this was in the early 90s when I was a brand new nurse, like just graduated or was about to graduate, and I hadn't really had any experience yet, and there wasn't physical therapists that you went to back then. This was me just making up exercises with a vegetable can in each arm and 1 pound leg weights. So we have to have hope first. So please, there's hope for elderly. There's hope for patients. I've had patients in stage 4 cancer that are in full remission now. So you have to give them the hope and the belief. Otherwise, they're not going to try. They're not going to take the action steps to have it. So we gave Frank the hope.
And she spoke to my father as well. And
gave him a pep talk.
And that's the thing. And because I feel like a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm this age, I give up, kind of deal. And I was going to paraphrase it, but that was much better said. But you kind of were like, listen, if they believe as much as you believe, that's half the battle right there. Yes. And I can see my dad's attitude. He's like, I'm going to walk again. I've got this. Yes. And even little small steps, he's able to now move side to side without pain. The pain is getting less when he's getting up and down. So we're seeing progress. Yes. And because you gave him that hope really and believe,
yay. And then also I recommend that if you have elderly parents out there, if they're getting physical therapy or occupational therapy for the arms, ask the therapist if they can print out pictures of the exercises. This way, when therapy is not there and you're with the family member, you can remind them to do the exercises, and them even seeing the pictures will be like, oh yeah, I have to move my foot this way. So I think that was another good idea.
We did that as well.
Yeah.
And there's the thing too, depending on what their problem is, like my dad has some cognitive impairment, a little bit, and having that, in case he doesn't remember, he can look at it. It's right next to his communication book, and he goes, oh yes, here's what I need to do. And it is helpful.
Yes. So now everybody that sees him and visits him writes in the communication book, like, hey, you know what, his bottom's a little red, or hey, you know, we did physical therapy today, or these are the exercises. So yeah, that's a great point. And you know, you gotta advocate, because even with me going to the nurse's station saying, listen, he needs an air mattress because he's gonna get a bed sore if not, and then that's on you. And you know,
the next day.
the next day,
So when
you got an
people
air
say,
mattress.
and a lot of people I think say, oh, that's not going to change anything. Well, it did, and it
did.
does, and he's getting better because of these subtle changes that the average person, I would not have thought of that. I wouldn't have known about that. That's not my
Yes.
background.
Yes.
So having somebody, whether it's a friend or, you know, your healthcare provider who you just see as your healthcare provider, bringing them into the mix is really helpful, because if you're not an expert in this, you want the best possible advice to navigate something
Yes.
like this.
And I would have thought someone like that, who's so prone to a bed sore, being that he broke his back, he's not moving much, he's a little bit cognitively impaired, that and so skinny, that he would be prone to that, that they would have thought, since he's been there, I don't know, a few days or whatnot,
over a week now.
over a week, to be proactive. So it's important to don't wait till the problem happens, because once a bed sore starts, a lot of times it just gets bigger to the bone. They get infection and sepsis, and that's not a good thing. So you have to think ahead, be a forward thinker, like Sir Richard Branson says on one of the Zoom classes that I took.
Yeah.
So be a forward thinker and think about, okay, what can we avoid next? We have to avoid pneumonia. Let's do, you know, blow bubbles. Let's get them active and moving, and ask the doctor for orders for everything, because the nurses and the healthcare providers at these facilities, they're not allowed to do things without a doctor's order. So, you know, you can go up to the nurse and say, hey, listen, when the doc comes tomorrow, can you get an order to get out of bed, to turn, to you know, whatever it may be.
And I think you have a great point too, whether it's that, you know, I always do in business, that you brought to my attention to do as like, this is a business transaction, be proactive, not reactive.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's a chapter in my book.
And
proactive, not reactive.
It's really,
in case you guys haven't read Overcoming Life
because if I would have just been like, well, he doesn't have a bed sore yet, so we're just going to wait and see what happens. I mean, who knows? But by being proactive,
hopefully we avoided that.
Absolutely.
It's like this. Yes, you put on your seatbelt, right, before you get in that car accident, right? You can't put it on midway, like, oh my God, I'm about to crash. Let me reach for the buckle. You have to put it on ahead of time. You have to think ahead of time what might happen and how can you avoid it and prevent it. And that's why we wear seatbelts. That's why we put on sunblock. That's why we wear seatbelts in an airplane. Not like if we're 20,000 feet up high, that seatbelt's going to save me. It might. But you know what? We're proactive in an airplane at, I don't know, however many miles high we are, but we need to be more proactive with our health and our life. And I think that's very important. And I want to give credit to you. I want to say, you guys reach out to Marisa. She does a lot of, for Halo branded solutions, a lot of marketing materials. Like if you need little keychains or pens or t-shirts, right? Hats,
branded
logos,
merchandise,
mouse pads, whatever branded merchandise you want with your brand and your logo and your name on it. They can print it no matter what state you're in, well, pretty much any country. So we're going to tell you, we're global, Halo branded solutions. But I would prefer if you email her directly, because she sits on the board of 12 nonprofits and is not paid for that, that we give you some of the commission by them coming to you for their services directly. So then you have a few bucks that you can take the time to volunteer throughout the community like you're doing. Between the women's groups, the chambers of networks, the Fighty Line, whatever, however you want to say it, tomato, between all of those, women's services, youth, civic association, Farmingville Residents Association, all the others that you sit on the board of, from the Farmingville residents, I can't name them all, but we want to allow her to be able to, you know, make her money that she can volunteer throughout the community like you've been doing, because we want to keep you in the community volunteering for us.
And you know, I love what I do. I really do. I mean, my career, you know, I've been doing it for 16, 17 years. And it plays a role a lot in what I do, because a lot of my clients that I manage, you know, work for sales teams, and then I have my own clients. And most of my clients are people I've worked with from my different Erickson community work. So your community work, when you're giving back because you believe in it, also can parlay into whatever your career is. They help each other. They really do.
Yes.
Or if you want to get involved in your community in whatever way it is and you don't know how, I'm a nerd for nonprofit community work, so I'm happy to discuss that as well.
Oh my God, she's on all the boards. Well, 12. That's pretty much all the boards I know.
And I feel like you meet such great, wonderful people doing those things. You know, inspiring people who are your membership, who are on your boards. you learn and you grow by working together. So it's been really rewarding altogether.
And I want to say, since we couldn't see some of your comments because we're live streaming a different way now, please, again, drop down below, live or replays, whoever watched it, drop it a thumbs up, a heart, wherever you are. Click that subscribe if you're on YouTube. And do you have any final thoughts as we're about to wrap it up before your team comes in?
I just think that, it's I've learned a lot. I thank you again, seriously, because you were the first person to tell me what to look for that I, as a layperson, would not have known. And I learned how to advocate in a different industry than I'm used to, in a different way in my life. And I think it's so important to not be afraid to ask all the questions you need to from all the sources. Don't think you have all the answers, because I know I don't, especially in this industry. But I knew who to go to. So use your networks, especially in a situation like this. Use your networks to benefit your loved one who you're trying to advocate for and help.
That's a good point. And you have me actually lost for words. I don't think I've ever been lost for words.
Who are you?
Who knew? What else was I gonna say? Yes, and it's important that, like, if you don't know what to ask for, reach out, like she said, to a healthcare provider, another healthcare provider in the community. Maybe look them up from your local chamber, or, like, this is a good point. I have some people, my question, like, oh, you work virtually? Because I see a lot of patients on a video visit similar to this, but private, confidential, on a video or phone call, or I see the family members too. And it's odd that sometimes people ask me, like, oh, how can you know everything about them virtually? Well, you know what? I was the first one that told her what was wrong with her father without even examining him. Plus, the doctors had examined him, the ER had examined him, the subacute term facility, the orthopedist, the radiology facility. But I was the one that told her before any of that, because I have over 30 years experience. I pretty much seen it, been there, done that, and I go with my gut. I'm not psychic, but I'm very intuitive from seeing it over and over. So a lot of people will ask me, like, oh, how do you treat people virtually? I'm like, you know what? I went all the way to, I'm not going to mention this facility, but out of state, several hours, a whole weekend trip to follow up with my old cardiologist before I fired him. He never took a stethoscope to my chest. Now, I've been in heart failure before. Never took a stethoscope to my chest. Didn't do the EKG or my blood pressure or my heart rate till after he left the facility for the weekend. Never, like, looked at my ankles to see if they were swollen. And then people ask me, like, oh, how do you treat people virtually? I'm like, I went out of state to see this doctor. Several hours drive each way, stayed over at a hotel for him not to take a stethoscope
Because you
to me.
listened.
But yet,
You
yes. But then, like, I just listened to her dad's complaint, and that's all it took. And then I had someone else. I won't. Well, you know who you are, because I know you're probably on here, from one of our groups that had a recent. I think she had, the virus, pneumonia, and was on all these heavy antibiotics and still coughing and hacking. Been to the doctor, follow up, repeat chest X-ray, no pneumonia. And I said to her at the meeting, I said, listen, just take a deep breath and blow it out. And it made her cough. I said, your lungs are restricted. You have an asthmatic component, even though you never had asthma. And of course, you use the humidifier, you stay out of the cold, and you use a rescue inhaler for a few times, and you'll be okay. And that's exactly what she did. After she went to the doctor, who listened to her, the repeat doctor, the chest x-ray, the heavy antibiotics, more heavy antibiotics because she was still coughing. And it was just the fact that she was inflamed her airways and needed something to dilate them, a bronchodilator. So yes, I can treat people remotely just like this. And I do want to wrap this up because we got to go. I just want to say, for those of you that out there, advocate for yourself, advocate for your parents, your grandparents. Treat them as good as they treat you, if not better. Your children. If go with them to the appointment, bring a pen and paper, ask for the results, get a second opinion, a third opinion, reach out to me. I not only do private video consultations with patients, I will do it with the caregivers as well. So like someone like Marisa, or say you have an elderly parent who has, say, Alzheimer's, I can get on the video consultation with you and tell you how to advocate for them and what you can do to move the ball forward. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with the patient that might have impaired memory. It could be the caregiver or the healthcare proxy. Absolutely. So that's good to know. And how can they reach out to you? Maybe we'll drop your email link.
Absolutely.
Hey, she works for Halo Branded Solutions. We'd rather you email her so she can make the extra money so that she can be on more boards more. Yes.
And I'll give my overall email because since I do have so many jobs and endeavors, it's Marisa, Marisa, Pizza spelled like pizza, Pizza 11738. It's my zip code in Farmingville at gmail.com. That's my umbrella email.
Awesome.
You can get me for any possible need.
Awesome. And we're just going to wrap this up. So I want to say to all you guys out there, please reach out to her for all your branded needs. Reach out to myself. My newest website is worldwellnessexpert.com because that is me, the world wellness expert. What I have brand new, didn't tell you this. We just put, there it is. Look at that. Overcoming life obstacles that reach #1 internationally per Amazon standards. We just put that on my website where you can get the e-version now for like 66% off the Amazon price. So you get the e-version for $9 now. And it's a really good book. It'll tell you how I helped advocate for my grandmother, how she got walking again at 79 without a cane or walker, how I advocated for my own health with my own autoimmune problems, my own heart failure. And if I didn't advocate for myself, I would still be maxed out on multiple meds. I'd still be in excruciating pain, fatigue, weird rashes, IBS, MS, all this other stuff, heart failure. And because I advocated for myself, I'm off all those drugs. Back to my ideal weight, blood pressure, sugars, my no weird rashes, no more pain. I'm happier and energetic, and I want to help you do that. So your first step could be reach out to her for marketing. Reach out to worldwellnessexpert.com/OLO. That's the acronym for the book, Overcoming Life Obstacles. So yeah, worldwellnessexpert.com/OLO to get your e-version of the book for $9, brand new up there. All right, guys, and the book signing last night was really good too.
Excellent. I heard great
fellow
things.
authors and local authors. All right, and we gotta go, right? We gotta go. So click that subscribe button if you didn't, and we'll see you soon, right? We will. Come back and hello.
Thanks for having me.